Good morning, everybody. That's very good. Okay, so I think first thing just to kick things off is always good to start with a game. So to wake everyone up. So one of the things I want to do first is everyone know here Mr. Trump. And one of the things I'm interested in is followers on his Twitter account. So the question is, of his 66.9 as of 2 days ago million followers, how many of these do you think are fake? As a show of hands, please just pop your hand up if you think he has any fake followers or if you think they're all real people. Okay. All right, so a lot of fake people. Now, just to be able to look at this, so you can tell usually if it's a fake person because they've got like a lot of numbers after their, or a lot of strange letters and numbers. They have a blank thing, profile picture. And just to show that it is these top three. So this top one, following 21 people with 0 followers, 37 with 0 followers, and 13 with 0 followers. Pretty suspicious, right? I would probably look at that and think, okay, that's probably a number of bots or fake accounts. Right. With that in mind, everyone knows Katy Perry, who's probably the most followed person on Twitter, of 108.3 million. Fake followers, real followers. Now, I've coloured you a little bit now, so you're a little bit more skeptical. So, show of hands, do you think she's got fake followers? Oh, crikey, I've already... Well, sadly, it does look like the same thing. Yes, fake followers, fake followers, fake followers. Now, the last one. I did this in Turin, in Italy, and very Catholic country. I hope I don't get struck down by lightning for this, but Pope Francis. Oh, Holy Father, Padre. So, 18.1 million followers. Fake or real? Hands up for fake. Oh, you cynical people. Yes, you're right. There are a number of fake followers. Now, obviously, certainly not putting on Pope Francis himself that he's buying Russian bots to follow him and pad out his story of marketing, but it's pretty unequivocal. And of course, you're now all thinking, well, what about you, Ross? I bet you've got lots of fake followers. Well, no. I don't know where that slide disappeared, but you would have seen that I don't have any currently that I'm aware of. So one of the things that we did that you've done already is your moonshot, correct? And you've all started to put out there what your big, bold, ambitious plan is, correct? Good stuff. Okay, so one of the things I'm really keen on is how do we translate this idea into some kind of reality? But, you know, who am I to talk? I'm kind of a nobody, right? Well, I've kind of worked with a number of big, small, medium-sized companies, from Uber, where I had the opportunity to actually launch them across 12 European cities, to Harry's, to Lamborghini, to Vertigo Films. I have the privilege of working with a lot of startup communities as well, because I like to keep my finger on the pulse of what's actually going on and where the challenges are for any startups of regardless of what kind of age they are. Earlier this summer, I was the head of the program in the European Innovation Academy that was held in Hong Kong, literally as the protests were starting, and on our last day, there was a typhoon that closed the entire of Hong Kong. So it was an incredibly wonderful experience for me to lead several hundred people during that time. But one of the things I'm particularly interested in and proud of at the moment is these two projects that I'm currently working on. And one of the aspects I want to give you through all of this is that everything I'm telling you, I'm personally doing right now. Okay? It's worked for my clients, it's working for me, and I want it to work for you. So I'm going to use a lot of my own examples as well, so you can actually see it and not just a lot of academic theory, which looks nice in a textbook. But we'll come on to what these are later. So this is myself. Obviously, you can find me on LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out and make a connection. I'm more than happy to answer any questions as much as I can. Or you can find me, obviously, on Twitter with my real followers, just to prove it. Look, there, see, real. I don't know why Magic Mike there is following me, frankly, but you know, who beggars can't be choosers. So, one of the things that I'm currently working on at the moment is a global initiative called Clean Table. And what we're actually doing is basically getting 10% of publicly listed companies to reduce their carbon down to net zero. Okay? Nobody else is currently doing this. Nobody else is leading the initiative on this. The World Economic Forum, the UN have been calling on companies to do something for the last 5, 6 years. And to date, they've got 93 companies signed up. So my ambition, my moonshot, if you like, is to get 10% of publicly listed companies, which works out to be about 4,300 companies. That's where I'm going. One of the ways I'm doing that is through a number of exclusive events and also a large summit in Amsterdam next year. And this is me putting myself out there. I've produced a number of summits in the past and conferences, but this is kind of working on my with my own new team and trying to do something that hasn't actually been done before ever. And it's so my way of putting myself out there, because I personally believe that to stand out, you have to be outstanding. So my idea is like create something that's outstanding, and you'll set yourself apart from anyone who tries to be a competitor. So one of the things that we talk about with moonshots is we say a lot about what the idea could be, how big it could be, but you know. As anyone can say, anyone can have $1 billion idea. Execution is everything. Do we know who said that? No, it was me, actually. But you wouldn't have... See? You're confused already. All right? I actually said that. But because I put on Kennedy, you just assume it's Kennedy. Okay? Smoke and mirrors with marketing. That's all it is half the time. Okay? But it's leading you on a story to think about this. Okay? You can create any kind of story that you want personally. It's how you position it. And this is something that I want to impart on you today. So there's a lot of people who say that the marketing in a company is just done by the marketing person, the CMO. To be honest, those days are long gone. Okay? Your marketing team is everyone. Okay? Whether it's a customer service person picking up the telephone, okay, through to the CEO who's presenting at a conference, through to the chief technology officer who's recruiting new people to come into the team. Okay, marketing doesn't stop just with the CMO, okay, or just with the marketing department. It's a very common misunderstanding, and unless you are like a company the size of like, you know, Rolls-Royce or Virgin, or who's got hundreds and hundreds of people working in these departments, okay, everyone has to take marketing on board as their own role. Okay, and there's a lot of confusion as well about what we're going to be doing over today. Okay, a lot of people will probably just be coming here hoping for a straight line. This is the silver bullet. I've got this one thing that's actually going to help you be a company juggernaut. And unfortunately, any marketing person who ever tells you that, anyone who is says this is the only thing you ever need. Okay, they're just selling something. All right. This is the real reality of every single business, of every single marketing campaign I've ever seen, studied, witnessed. Okay? It's never straight. It's never simple. And it's always messy. Okay? We can do as much as we can to understand and to make it as comfortable and as clean as possible. But the reality is that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have to change your ideas. You're going to have to reevaluate. You're going to then find surprising ideas of people who actually love what you're doing and love what your products and services is and the way you speak to them, okay, who you had never thought of, and then you will have discovered this brand new market. Or you may just be steering finally closer to what's exact and what you need. Okay, so please bear in mind that everything we're talking about, particularly when we go through to the workshop section, that anything you write down now isn't set in stone, isn't permanent, okay? It can be changed. It's an iterative process, okay? And it will change and evolve a lot over the days and weeks as we go forward. Does that make sense? Yeah? Is that okay with everybody? Okay, good. So, what is your vision? So, I know that with your moonshot, You basically wrote kind of like, we're going to be doing this. I think I read pretty much everyone's. So like there's the HR department, the translation company doing the HR stuff, wasn't it? Who was looking to incorporate AI? Is that correct? Something like that with the moonshot, right? As an example. So, so these are some big and bold ideas, and there's a lot of things that will need to happen way down the line before we even get there. So how do we actually break it down? So, well, that's big, isn't it? So one of the things that we always talk about is when you have a vision for what you're trying to do, what does that actually look like? What does that actually mean to anyone who comes to your company? Okay, a couple of examples to give here was Red Bull, the energy drink. I don't know if you're aware of it here. Horrible thing, horrible stuff, all right? But obviously they can't have that as their vision, okay? But theirs is to spread our wings over the world. Well, I'm not really sure what that means. They're not an airline, so but it's a bit subversive. It's a bit philosophical, which I guess is in keeping with their brand. Google's mission, obviously, that was originally don't be evil, and then they got found out for tax. Which one is the good one? Evasion or avoidance? I think it's evasion, and offshoring profits and things like that. So they had to then change their their mission statement or their vision because it was not really conducive with what was actually happening. And instead they've changed it now to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. That's the vision. Okay, I'm not saying that's the reality or that's what actually happens, but that's what they want it to be. So all it really boils down to is to do something for somebody. Okay, you know, you can have branding people, branding agents come in and like they're creating these big visions. Essentially, this is all it boils down to. What do you do and who do you do it for? Okay, really is that simple, right? So when I'm talking about like breaking all this stuff down, that's how we're going to be doing it. So just thinking about what your personal vision is, what your moonshot vision, and this is something that we'll come on to a little bit this afternoon, but we're saying at company, whatever your company name is, we are doing XYZ, or solving a big problem, okay, by, and whatever your solution is, your product, your service, and for, and then your customer group, okay? And all you have to do then is just fill in the blanks. Even I can do that, okay? That's why I had to make it this simple for myself, okay? So once you've understood this, excuse me, once you've understood this, you're then able to start really starting to develop further into what we're doing. And then we move on to what's important, which is obviously the goals. Because with the vision, it's very much up here. It doesn't really mean anything. It's kind of hard to define. So what we're now going to try and do is actually chunk it down, is what a term is, okay? This is the only football individual I probably know. Yep, Ronaldo there. So this is going to be something we come on to this afternoon, which is really valuable. But what are your goals? Okay, what are you actually trying to achieve? Now, I've seen many well-intentioned but very badly worded or badly designed goals. So a goal is basically someone put, this was a real one, we will have a product that is trusted and transparent within North America. When? How are you going to measure it if it's trusted? Why North America? How are you going to ensure it's going to be North America? Which product? Okay? It's so vague and open, it can be misinterpreted. And when you have any goal that can be misinterpreted, the problem is that everyone thinks that their activity or what they're doing answers the goal, but because it's not definitive or really specific, everyone tends to run off and do slightly different things, and then you find out whatever the goal was that you originally wrote down as like the CEO or as like one of the directors was never achieved. And then usually what happens is that people then scramble back to try and, oh, that's not quite what I meant, and they try and change it. Just what I've seen in many companies. Another example here is by the end of the decade, I've taken their name out. This is another one. Will be the largest online education platform provider, in the world. So that was a company who came to me. They sought me out. I think it's through Virgin, and they approached me and they said, we really want you to come and help us with our marketing. We've got this amazing education platform, and we want you to come on and, you know, help us. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, great. And just ask a couple of questions. I was like, you know, love your ambition. I said, how many customers have you got already? How many clients have you got? Oh, one. Oh, okay. Oh, is it like a university? Is it school? No, it's just one. I was like, so you're going from that to the world? Yeah. How are you going to do that? Well, that's for you to work out. Whoa, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. No. Doesn't work like that. I said, you don't need me. You need a genie. So that didn't work out. But what are a good goal? Well, frankly, this, and you know, I'm not trying to say this is fantastic, but we always talk about SMART goals. So when I was doing my marketing training 20 odd years ago, this was always hammered into us. SMART. So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and targeted, or time-bound. Okay? And the whole idea is that if you basically tick off all of these within the statement of the goal, you will actually then be able to say, yes, we've answered all of these questions. Okay? So an example is by the 1st of April, so it's a really smart, specific, time-bound statement. Company us we'll have 100 customers paying 10,000 euros per month. Okay? So it's really, really easy to measure against. Really, really simple to have a definitive like sales or marketing goal that can be easily understood by everybody. It's not open to interpretation, and everyone can then really find out what they're trying to be doing. I do an example here of like click-through rates of 45%, or with an open rate of 45% and a click-through rate of 10%. Any of you do any like marketing analytics, particularly around your emails, will understand what that means. Okay. One of the things that we will come on to this afternoon as well is that we're very much not about what we describe as vanity metrics. So vanity metric is basically, oh, well, we get, you know, 1 million people to our website every month. Well, good for you. It doesn't mean anything unless it actually translates into something valuable for the company that's actually going to take you to where you want to be for your moonshot or for your big vision. It's just, you know, oh, that's nice. Isn't that nice for you? How interesting. Okay. But it's got to be down to something specific and tangible. Okay. So why marketing? Well, I think we've got everyone's logo up here. Do we? No? Yeah. All right. Crikey. Nearly fell straight away. So the idea is to take your, you guys over here, you're going for your moonshot, and somewhere along the middle is the marketing that's going to stitch the two together. Thanks for that, guys, at the back. It's a nice big task for me. So everyone knows this guy at the end, Steve Jobs. One of the things he always talks about was how to create a story. Okay, and this is something that so I've gone through everyone's websites and through your social media. Don't worry, I'm not here to openly, you know, critique or anything like that, or like say on live stream, oh, this one was terrible. Don't go and see that. But what we want to try and do is actually look at, well, how do we go from kind of where we were to where we want to be? And so, for example, when Steve Jobs launched the iPhone, and I use the iPhone because it's universally known. Before then, it was all about button phones. Okay, so the iPhone was the first touch screen. Okay, which had never been done before. And it took away the necessity for the keypad, and then it kind of completely revolutionized the mobile phone industry. And the reason why that it became so successful and iconic was for the story that he created around it. So we all know the story of the iPhone. We all know the story of how it developed. Okay, because it's almost this like myth, this legend that's now transcends even Steve Jobs himself. But where did it all start? So when we're thinking of a story for your own brand, for your own company right now, okay, we want to be thinking about what do we want it to be at the end, so that a customer who finds you, how are they going to tell someone else about your story? Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick example. I don't know how well this translates over here. Lord of the Rings, everyone? Hands up if you know Lord of the Rings, roughly. All right. Okay. Aragorn. Right? Yeah, okay. Game of Thrones. Okay. And Harry Potter. Okay, all right, okay. I found almost a universal one. Okay, that's good. So this is really interesting for a specific reason. So these three, like, what would you call them? Fantasy magical novels, right? Lord of the Rings, that was written by Tolkien. And when he started writing the first book, The Fellowship of the Ring, he had no idea what the story was going to be. None whatsoever. Which is why the first half of like 300 pages of this book is just nothing happening. Okay, because he just started writing and he was just hoping that a story would somehow magically develop out of it. And he was sending letters back and forth to C.S. Lewis, who wrote Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe series and the Narnia Chronicles. And to his son, and was saying, "Oh, what do you think about this?" And the son was saying, "Well, I don't really like that bit." And from the mouths of a 13-year-old came, you know, the feedback to get Tolkien to write Lord of the Rings. Miracle, right? Now, Game of Thrones, okay? Everyone knows kind of this, what's happened there behind the scenes. So, obviously, what's his name? George Martin. He started writing them. Took him 2 years to write a single book. HBO came along, said, brilliant, we're going to convert this and make it into a TV show. It's going to make everything. And then, of course, what happened with the TV show eclipsed the speed that he could write the books. So the TV company then actually wrote the final season or two, which was then universally hated by, it was the only thing on the internet everyone's agreed on, where everyone hates the last episode or two of Game of Thrones. So that started where the ending wasn't known. In contrast to this, Harry Potter. So J.K. Rowling, she actually went to the same university that I did, not at the same time. Damn, missed out there. But she wrote, it's a 9 series book series, and the very, very first thing she ever wrote was the very last chapter of the 9th book. So she knew at the very beginning exactly how the whole story was going to end. Now, with Harry Potter, obviously, it's one of the most famous and celebrated and profitable series that's ever been. And one could argue that part of the reason for that is that she was always very clear right from the onset exactly what everyone's story arc was going to be, what the story was going to be, and how it was going to end in a satisfying way because she started with the end in mind. That would be pretty cool, right? If we could actually think about that. And that's kind of what Steve Jobs did as well. He always had that vision with the iPhone of it's going to be like this, okay? How are you going to make it happen, okay? It's not like Steve Jobs was there working on how to solder bits of an iPhone together. He said, right, engineers, get on it. That was it. On 1,000 phones in my pocket. Go. Okay? He wasn't the one there like trying to work out on how to program it all. He left that to Wozniak. Okay? Steve Jobs, he was the one stood up there crafting the story around the brand. So who are you actually marketing to? Who you actually is your customer? I've seen some of your documents on kind of how you're actually starting to develop that. But if you're just saying, oh, well, everyone loves our product. Okay, well, the problem is if everyone loves your product, nobody loves your product because you can't market to everybody. Okay, so one of the things I'm really keen to look at is, which we'll do a bit this afternoon when we look at your personas, personality personas, is actually who you actually marketing to. So, for example, like B2C, there's a couple of companies in here who do B2B and B2C, as far as I'm aware and understand. So some questions to be thinking about is, what is their actual behavior? I'm not talking about, specifically what do they read necessarily, or, where can we advertise? But kind of think about, well, how do they actually interact with your product? Because that's one of the biggest misnomers that people have. There was a tech company I met a couple of years ago, and they said, oh, we want to have an app. We want to have an app on your phone where you can check if something's gluten-free or something. If you, and it's for all the yummy mummies, right? The 30-year-old mummies or something. And they were like, yeah, you could be pushing a trolley and you're like zapping and oh yeah, and it's all augmented reality. And I was like, have any of you got kids? No. Have you any experience of being shopping with kids? No. So their idea of shopping with children, I don't know if any of you got children, is this. Oh, yes, oh, pick that up, darling. Yes, just put it in there. This is the reality. This one's trying to get away, is struggling, is fighting, is probably spitting, goodness knows what. Okay, and all you're trying to do is just get through without causing as much disruption to everyone else as possible, pay and get out. You haven't got time to be floating around with your augmented reality. So this is where like the reality of what we're talking about meets, or not, expectation. And then, you know, this is one of the things, you know, good old Brexit. This is one of the problems that is as much of a negative thing as it is a positive thing. So people buy emotions. They don't buy the facts. You might have the fastest processing, or you might be the best network provider. But what does that actually mean to me? Okay? Trump was elected not because of facts. Okay? Goodness knows. No one in the UK voted for Brexit because of facts. Okay? Certainly not me. All right? But people buy on their emotions, and their emotions are so stirred up that they just went along with whatever it was. Now, these are extreme examples, please. I agree with that. But what I'm saying is look at what's happened. Don't look at actually what the context is. Okay? So just look at what happens when you engage someone's emotions so much as a buyer, as a consumer. Okay? You will actually vote in ways that you probably wouldn't expect to do reasonably. And so when we talk about brands, we want to think about where we're actually pitching ourselves. What kind of company do you naturally feel within your competitive landscape do you feel that you are? You know, so are you a Bugatti, like the fastest car in the world? Or are you the Ford F, was it 150, 160, which is the most popular selling car in the world by quite a way? Or are you the Tesla, okay? Or perhaps you're something a bit more, even more ecologically friendly, like a tram from here in Riga. Nice nod and a wink there. Some of you probably recognize it. Or are you going down the electric scooter route? So kind of where do you think you are currently? Yeah? Where do you feel you are? Where would you like to be? Okay? Just a quick show of hands then. Come on then, just check you're all awake. Who sees themselves as the Bugatti? And you can, it's okay, I don't mind. Okay, all right, the Tesla. Yeah, bit cool, bit trendy, yeah. The Ford. Yeah, they're Ford, yeah. The scooter. Aww. And the tram. Yeah, cool. There's no right or wrong. That's it with this. Doesn't matter what you say, there's no right or wrong, because you are you. It's like saying you're wrong or you're right, okay, because you are who you are. It's ridiculous, okay? It's just the brand that you've adopted, and these guys have leaned into it. So, when we think about, when we think about a B2B, a lot of you guys here, I think pretty much everyone does B2B sales, right? Or is growing their B2B. So, this, do any of you guys know this person? Okay? So, I reached out to him on LinkedIn, and I was, you know, he's a managing director of a company. Okay, so I reached out to him and said, obviously I can see, look, he's got a nice watch. It's a Breitling. It's his kid. He's on holiday somewhere. He's obviously happy. He's got his sunglasses on. Okay, so I reached out to him and said, hey, look, I know it's really hard. You know, as a CEO of a company, especially if you've got kids. Obviously, I've got kids. But I really admire what you've done with the company and where you've taken it. Oh, hey, Ross, thanks for that. Blah, blah, blah. Well, that's great. Had a chat. Hey, why don't you come down to the factory sometime? I was like, yeah, okay, I'd love to. That'd be fantastic. Okay? And all it is me as a CEO reaching out to a fellow CEO, okay, sharing a pained experience of having kids and being a CEO, okay, is exactly the same, okay? There's a leveler for everyone. Obviously, I'm not saying, oh, what a beautiful child you have, because that would be a bit weird. Don't start doing things like that, okay? But saying, yeah, I know the struggle that you're going through. I know the challenges that you have day to day, and also emotionally and psychologically of like being away from your family, okay? So when you think about a company that you're trying to develop a relationship with, you're trying to market to, you're trying to sell to, a lot of people just focus on the brand, but they often forget who is the person, who's the individual with the buying power, with the actual capital within the company that you need to address. Okay? So I know now that we can have a conversation at any point where I just say, oh, hey, I've just got a problem with this. Can I get your advice on that? Yeah, cool. And there's a backwards and forwards because it comes from a mutual level of value. Okay? And this is where every one of you should be. Okay? No one's come along and christened me or anybody with the CEO title. Okay? Doesn't make any difference. Okay? But the only difference is that I would talk to someone who's like, oh yeah, I'm a CEO, you're a CEO. Everyone's got the same problems. God, I can't get so-and-so to do this. Problems with staffing. Why is everyone always trying to want on holidays? He's sick again. I can't believe it. Okay? But many, many people, and it's not limited to startups, but just think of, oh, well, we market to average white guy. And this, if you Google average white guy at the time, is who you get. Okay? Now, it's incredibly difficult to market to him, I'll tell you. Was he white? Okay, what can I tell you about? He's shaven, okay? Looks a little bit dyed hair to me, okay? Not the greatest dress sense, okay? Personally, I don't know. But then I'm probably a little bit the opposite of that, actually, with my beard and, well, I wouldn't say my dress sense. I definitely don't dye my hair, I know that much. But how would you market to him, okay? If you were to see this as a profile pic of the head of one of the companies that you're trying to get in with, how would you actually market to them, personally, individually? This is what you have to start to think about. Instead, you can have a look at people like this guy. Does anyone know who this is? No? Brilliant. Okay. So this is a chap called Tim Ferriss, and he is like an influencer of influencers. All right? So he was an original investor in like Uber. He's incredibly well connected in Silicon Valley. Has a really, really good podcast if you like listen to podcasts. And he's all about how do you accelerate learning and everything like that. Now, even just looking at the photos of him, you can see he's something interesting. These are all very, choreographed, orchestrated images, but they tell you a lot about him. They tell you, obviously, there's an image here in the background of some Chinese writing. He has tea rather than coffee. He's writing. He's surrounded by books. He's obviously in good shape. Keeps his hair short 'cause he's slightly receding. But you can see a lot about him that you can then infer things around. Now, as one of the most connected people within Silicon Valley, he's very, very good at how to present his own personal brand, and his brand is incredibly powerful. Okay, so he originally started with the 4-hour work week, and has since moved on to write some more valuable books, I would say, around actually how do you build up a tribe around you and how do you build a mental network, things like that. So it's definitely worth looking after. But if you have a look at him compared to what the average white guy, okay, you want to think about what's different. Okay, how's he presenting himself to the world? How's he thinking of who his projection is going to be? And how's that invoke emotions in other people? Could you imagine hanging out with Tim? I'd like to hang out with Tim. And that's one of the things he creates. So hey, yeah, I'm unassuming, I'm interested. Let's have a chat. Okay, that's the image he presents out. So when we're talking about a story, obviously you don't have to be Jack Nicholson, but Stephen King, who wrote The Shining, nice little segue there, he actually said that there are only ever 2 stories. Either the hero goes on a journey or a stranger comes to town. And then when you start to think about it, it's like, oh, God, yeah, he's right, actually. So it could be Star Wars, where some boy goes off and fights the thing, or, it can be It, where some demon comes to the village, okay? Every 2 story comes to that. Which is kind of depressing if me that simple, but also quite reassuring that, we can all come out with our own story for the brand that we're doing, for the marketing that we're doing, that only has to follow one of those 2 themes, okay? Is that easy? Can you think of any other story that doesn't have that? Well, if you can, let Stephen King know. I don't know, but I'll take your word for it. So one of the things that we need to think about is that you are all unique, okay, whether you realize it or not. In the same way that your dress sense, your thinking, your experiences, your history, your emotions, the collective experiences that you've been through have all made you unique, right? And as such, your brands, your companies are also unique, okay? But a lot of you kind of forget that, or you like duck down a little bit, or you feel like, well, we're not that unique. Well, everyone does that, don't they? No, they don't, because not every other companies don't have you in them, okay? So one of the things I'm really, really keen to do is unlock basically your hero story as well, or the brand's hero story, okay? So, yeah. So when you think about your competitors, how do you see yourself? Where do you see your competitors? You know, so I remember I used to have this one, this was Snake. Does anyone remember that? Yeah? Oh, good. I'm not the only old person in the room. Okay. And then this came out, and I was like, what? Man, that looks amazing. And it was all the way up here, okay? Super easy to use, okay? And smart. So if you had a smartphone, what other phone was there? The dumb phone, right? So if you didn't have a smartphone, you had a dumb phone. That was the only two you could have, okay? And all of the rest were down here. So when you're thinking of your own brand, be thinking about, okay, well, where are we? If we were on this map, or if we were on a different map, how are we going to differentiate ourselves from everyone else? How are we going to be unique? It doesn't have to be a technological leap forward, for example, like the iPhone. It can be something much simpler. It can be something that's much more intangible. It can be something much more fun. So, for example, when it comes back to some of the stuff that I'm doing at the moment, so we're running a series of 6 events around the world next year in some of the beautiful locations of the world for CEOs. Or the competition is like Davos, and this is Davos. So just like as a visual, nice, relaxing environment, which one would you rather be in? The Maldives or Davos, having the exact same conversations with the exact same people? I know which I'm going to go for. I'll see you there. You can get a ticket. Okay. But it's a question of thinking, how do you present that brand in a way that is different from anything that your competitors are offering that's even close to it? And one of the things we're going to talk about later is going to be like the hero's journey. Don't worry, this is overly complicated. But some of this is what we're going to start talking about. And then we're going to develop your brand as well. And this is like an example of your brand dashboard that you can use. And you can keep coming back to it as well, often and repeatedly, so that then you can then start to move forward and develop it and find out what comes and what doesn't. But don't worry about taking a photo, because there's like thousands of printouts at the back responsibly. Okay. How are we doing for time? Are we all right for time? Okay. So where to start? Okay. So hopefully everyone's on board so far. Everyone understands the value of the story. Everyone understands the value of understanding and describing what your brand is. Okay. And one of the things to think about is kind of which channel is right for you. Okay. Where do you want to be? Okay. Where do you want to be active and engaged and talking with your customers and your market and everything like this, and getting them all really excited? I'll give you a quick cheat, okay? If as a B2B, you have to be doing LinkedIn, you have to be doing Twitter, okay? I could have just led you around, like say, oh, you could, do this, do that. No, just cut straight to it, okay? You want to be on Twitter and LinkedIn, okay? As an absolute minimum, LinkedIn, okay? Twitter, I always say to go on, because every single journalist is on Twitter, and they will look at the number of Twitter followers you have. They will look at how active you are on Twitter. And if you have any kind of presence at all, they're more likely to engage with you. If you have no presence, they won't even talk to you. Okay? And LinkedIn, I love. All right? I'm a passionate believer in it. And I'm always interested in doing like social experiments with LinkedIn and social media. So during the always fascinated by Trump. He's an incredible individual, not in a good way, sorry, just quickly, I'll just refute that, I'm not endorsing him, but as part of his entourage that was around him, I was like, well, how close can you get to these people? So I connected with Anthony Scaramucci, who was the director of comms at the time, and also Michael Cohen, who was then indicted and then turned on Trump. He's now in federal prison. But I was able to connect with him during the trial, which I kind of thought was weird. As in, like, so he's on trial for, like, you know, the most important crimes of the century, but he's happy to accept a LinkedIn invitation from me. What? So I'm always fascinated by, like, what you can do. Where can you kind of push these, like, little limits? What can you explore? I'm not suggesting that, you know, you do go and try and connect with, you know, Michael Cohen or anyone else. I mean, he made a bad joke then. But I'm saying I do it because it personally fascinates me about what you can do and what you can't do. What is capable and what is possible. Okay. So, for example, this is genuine. This is how I approach someone. So, like Bo Flynn. So I say, hey, Bo, love what you're accomplishing with your new slate of films. I believe this is down to your eye for talent and incredible drive and passion. Having worked with the industry, I know how much relies on the shoulders of the producer. Would you mind if I share what you're doing with your community? Bo, he came back. Hey, Ross, thanks so much for your kind words. Would be honored if you would share with your community. Keep me posted and keep up the great and inspiring work. Now, who knows who Bo Flynn is? Anyone? I wouldn't have thought you did. But Bo Flynn is best friends with The Rock, okay, and produces all of The Rock's films, okay? So he's currently doing The Rock's doing The Jungle Cruise, Black Adam, The King, Hello Kitty, and Red Notice, okay? And he had Jumanji 2 just come out, okay? Now that's just, you saw I just like said, hey, you're doing an awesome job. Doesn't get told, doesn't get mentioned enough to people. Can you do it? And he goes, hey, that's really nice. Thanks. Thanks for saying something nice back to me. Okay? That's the usual abuse you get on social media. Okay? It is surprisingly easy to reach out to people who you have no connection with and in a very, very short time build up a relationship where you can then go and ask them and actually have a conversation with them. Is that the kind of thing you would want at your disposal? Yes? Hands up. Well, no. Okay, maybe not. I don't know. Okay, but if you could actually reach out and talk to anyone who you needed to, okay, would that be a valuable asset? Yes, I would argue. If you're in business, yes. Okay. So, of course, marketing doesn't always go great. This is the Cybertruck launch that Elon Musk did. Brilliant. And I haven't got any memes on there, but they were fantastic. There was one. I don't know if you saw. Does anyone see the truck? What it actually looks like? I think the best one I saw, someone said, it looks like an angry triangle. I just thought, man, like that's nailed it. And then, of course, he comes out, and has like a baseball guy throwing rocks at the window to show it's bulletproof. Of course, the windows shatter. But the reason why we're saying this is because you can manipulate everything that goes on online. And Alex pointed out really well here. So Alex works at Saatchi & Saatchi. And it was like the buzz around Cybertruck, for example, regardless of how well it was received or how well it went, as a marketing piece, was outstanding. Okay? But I think we're just going to stop there. Yeah. So that we can have a quick break, if that's okay with everyone. But what we're going to come back to after this is kind of like then how to start moving your social media and your marketing towards this guy and away from this guy, unless you really want this random guy. Okay? Good. So we'll just have a quick break then. Thanks. Oh, and please feel free to come up and ask me any questions at any point. Who's actually going to buy and how are they going to buy from you? How are you going to communicate with them in a way that they want to be? So these are the 4 that I would be recommending pretty much the majority of you focus on from what I've seen of the companies that you're working with. So LinkedIn and Twitter, as we mentioned, if you have something that's more visual, there's the lawn company. Where are they? Yes. So obviously that lends itself to being very visual, very beautiful. There's the jewelers. Where are the jewelers? There. Okay. So again, same with you. So you're more likely to be also using LinkedIn and Facebook as well. Okay. However, one of the things that I would always counsel is that you don't try and do everything, because that's usually the fastest way to get nothing done. So unless you're specifically trying to do something to like young teens. I'd forget Snapchat. YouTube, actually, I would recommend you don't do, mainly because it timestamps everything. So if you're not regularly putting something up on YouTube, and you do something like 2 years ago, there was somebody I saw, like a video came up, it was 2 years old, and it kind of makes me immediately think, oh, these guys haven't done anything for 2 years. Are they even still operating? Okay, so it's almost like that thing of, with YouTube, if you're not constantly doing it, it kind of almost works against you. VK, obviously, unless you're doing stuff to Russia or specifically to China, okay. WeChat as well, probably wouldn't recommend it. And obviously Google Plus now is gone, okay. And the reason is because no one used it. There was no need for it, okay. But Google wanted to enter that market of like kind of like the social, kind of like social media network platform, I think they were. But it never took off, okay, because they never had the buy-in, because there was too many similar products that were already doing better jobs. So one of the things that we're going to look at this afternoon is then how do you integrate your company's plan and vision with your marketing campaign, okay? And I'm going to show you specifically also how to have, using this, how to have your sales and your marketing working to maximum effect, okay, which is really rare, okay? Because most people, like I said, have like sales over here, they're doing something, marketing's over here, they're doing something else. So this little template, which we'll come on to later, actually I show you how to bring the two together so it really works convincingly and actually makes some difference. So now you have your brand, so what? Okay, how are you going to get it out there? You've agreed it internally, okay? It may take some tweaking, may take some nuancing, okay? But once you've got your brand agreed internally, you want to start getting it out there to the wider group. So obviously there's like a million things that you can do for marketing. These are probably like the top 20, I think it is. I'm not going to go through all of them because there's no point. There's a really good book called Traction, which I'd recommend if you're interested in like just having a look and start to get an idea of how you can use these. But what we'll do is just have a look at a couple of them, just to give you like an idea of, particularly on the B2B, what's really useful. Okay, so one of the key things for any of this, which has worked for me, okay, is something called reciprocity. Okay, so is that if I give you something, yeah, don't worry, you're not having it. Okay, you then feel obliged to give me something back. So if I was to give you my phone, you're like, oh, do you want some money for it? You know, well, just take that. Okay, it's an inbuilt nature because most of us, the majority of us, are told from when we're very young, you know, of like, if someone gives you an ice cream, oh, what do you say? Oh, thank you. Okay, you're told to give something back, even if it's just thanks, even if it's just a verbal thing. Okay, oh, you got a present for your birthday. What do? I'll give Nana a hug. Okay, so you give something back. You receive something, you give something. Okay, and this works with everything. Okay, so let me give you another example. So this was on Twitter. As you know, I quite like Twitter. So Eric Ries, he wrote the book, The Lean Startup. Does everyone know that book? Yeah, good. You should all know it. It's really, really, really valuable. So Eric Ries and Sean Ellis, he runs the Growth Hacking Network. So like kind of, I'm in that zone, whatever. So Eric and Sean were having this conversation, and these guys, kind of within the tech world, are like up here somewhere, there. Okay, really, really, really valuable people. And I saw that they were having this conversation. Eric was launching Sean was launching a new book. And Eric said to him, hey, would you mind, would it help if I offer something too? Hey, can I help you as well? Sean, get your book out. Sean comes back, thanks Eric, that would be awesome. I'll follow up by email. Brilliant, I think to myself, okay, he's told me what I need to do to engage with him. Offer to help sell his book, and I get his email and we can have a dialogue and conversation. So I come in, did you want some more media coverage also? Now there is not a person on earth who is trying to sell a book who doesn't want media coverage. Okay, it's that straightforward. So, would love more media coverage, thanks, says Sean. And then this is me being trendy. Cool. DM me your email and we'll drop you a line. Good work, my friend. Okay, then on private messaging, hey, thanks for the message on Twitter. My email is this. Cool, because I'm really cool, guys. Thanks, Sean. We'll drop you an email. Speak soon. Great. I'll keep an eye out for it. So then dropping him an email. We come back, backwards and forwards. I help him out, and I don't ask anything for it. Okay? Why would I ask anything for it? Because at some point in the future, he knows that I will help him out. And so there's this thing at some point later, he'll say, hey, you're doing this. Can I help you out? Okay? It's just kind of like an unspoken, unwritten rule. Okay? But everyone tries to help everybody. Okay? And the people who like don't help you out, just get rid of them. Okay? Because they'll just take from you all the time. Okay? And you don't want them in your network or in your life. Okay? Is this simple? Is this an easy thing that anyone could do? I mean, you're not going to be as cool as me, obviously. You know, say, hey, cool, DM me. All right? So one of the things that's been hammered into me from years and years and years is this, okay? When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude, okay? So if you think of any marketing that you ever do or any sales that you ever do, always think of it like this. Always think about how can whatever I do help that person, okay? Never go to them and say, oh, hey, you know, you couldn't just do me a favor and look at this, or you couldn't just have a look over this proposal, or you couldn't just do that for me. I'd really appreciate it. You know, I'd do something like this. No. In business, that never, ever gets a response that you want. And anyone who does say, yeah, sure, usually are not worth your time, okay? Because they haven't got time. Anyone who's really successful hasn't got time to like get just a nice email from someone unless it's going to help them as well somehow, okay? Everyone's just too busy, okay? So anything that you do, okay, say, hey, you couldn't just have a look at this and, you know, by doing that, I can then forward something onto you or help you out in some way, okay? So it has to help them first. And I come on to an example of like 6 degrees of separation. And this is something that I'm actually going to give you in the workshop afterwards. I've never shared it publicly, certainly never on camera. So when the live streaming goes off, I can tell you guys, okay? But this is how I have got to sit very, very senior people in every organization you can think of through this like one little cheat sheet that I'm going to share with you later. But it's all based on that reciprocation, okay? It's all about, hey, what can I do to help you? How can I help you specifically? Would this help you? Is this cool? Does that help? Okay? Does this support you on your journey where you're going? Okay? And a lot of it comes through LinkedIn, okay? Because with LinkedIn, they can see very quickly if I'm credible, if I'm trustworthy, or if I'm one of the people that they want to be associated with. So one of the things when you're filling out LinkedIn, I always think it's quite interesting is like not all LinkedIn profiles are very good. So one of the ones here is this Ellen Naylor. She put CEO, award-winning author of Win-Loss Anal. Now, I had to reach out to her and just check if that's exactly what she meant. And well, I didn't want to. Actually, no, that sounds really bad. I didn't want to know if that's exactly what she meant, but she made a mistake with that. So I'm just saying that when you put your LinkedIn profile out there, just be a little bit aware or careful of what you say. Steve Kaminsky, I've no idea who he is, but this is his profile. So he says, please don't try to connect with me unless we've met, exclamation mark. That's a bit passive aggressive. X-Tech, now more business strategy, looking for paid opportunities. So that immediately tells me exactly the type of person this is, right? I don't need to read any more. It tells me, please stop connecting with me if I don't know who you are. So I get a lot of spam, okay? I get a lot of spam. I'm a bit passive aggressive because I'm really pissed off about it, okay? Then he says, X-Tech, now more business strategy. So that usually means I wasn't very good at the tech bit, so I've now had to move into business strategy where I can get paid as being a consultant. Looking for paid opportunities means he's been doing a lot of free stuff because no one will pay him, okay, for what he does, okay? So that's basically 3 reasons not to connect with him, okay? Please don't be that guy, okay? I've already spoken to Steve about that and he's changed it now, but, okay? So please just be yourself and get on LinkedIn. Now, obviously we need to look at an outstanding example of LinkedIn. And it's taken me so long to search, and this random one just came up. But just to, I mean, we'll have a look at a bit this afternoon, but kind of just 2 things at the moment I want you to consider for your own personal LinkedIn accounts, okay? One is that your company name is up here, okay, with your logo, okay. Secondly, you have over 500 connections. And this is based on something called social proof. So social proof dictates that if a large proportion of people are in one gathering and there's like a very small proportion of people in another gathering, people are more likely, statistically, to head towards the larger group because it's safer. Okay, from an evolutionary psychological perspective, there's safety in numbers. Okay, simply put. But if you're just out there and you've got like 20 or 30 connections, everyone's like, well, why should I connect with you? There's no one's connected with you. Why should I be the first? Okay. Now the great thing is with LinkedIn, as it is, if you can have, I could have 501 connections, or I could have 20,000 connections. The idea is that you would never know. Okay.
Maybe I'm new.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm new.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, so.
You don't care.
I don't care.
Okay.
That's great. So I set a task actually to a group of the European Innovation Academy people who were there, and in 3 days, one of the teams went from no LinkedIn to over 500. Okay, so yeah, there's no excuse. You just tap on it. Okay, just remove. All I have to do is remove any games off my phone, and then just play that on the toilet. Okay, but the thing is that with your connections, your network is your net worth. Okay, so if you have a big network, okay, that you can draw on and you can rely on at any point, the 500 here is like the tip of the iceberg. But the problem is if you have under 500, everyone immediately sounds like, well, there's probably a reason that no one is connected with this person. I don't want to be the first in case I get some really weird messages from them. Okay? So here's a thing for business development. And this builds on when you've got your LinkedIn account set up. Okay? And I was talking earlier with the guys here, and I was saying that I'll send you like some more detailed notes that you can actually use to then implement for your own LinkedIn profile, and how to set it up and how to make it stand out. Okay, but this is a really smart, and it just keeps working, right? Key thing: everyone wants to buy, nobody wants to be sold to. Okay, which is true. Everyone wants to feel that they've got free will to buy their own stuff. Okay, I'll make the decision on if I buy it. You're not going to sell it to me. Okay. So you need to just allow that to happen and create the opportunity where they feel comfortable enough that they say, great, okay, how do we take this forward then? Okay. One of the things here is about establishing trust. Now, I think they're going to send around the slides after this. So the video is with a chap that I met called Frank Kern. And Frank Kern's an internet marketer. And one of the things he's absolutely brilliant at is creating a tribe, creating a trusted group around him of customers who just like, he's almost like, like the second coming of Christ when he walks in the room. It's amazing, okay? And what Frank Kern is very, very good at is how do you develop trust, okay? And I'm not going to go into it now, but in the video, in the example, it's like, well, how do you create trust between you as a company and the customer, okay? And what they try to do is that he shows you these little steps that you take where incrementally you show, look, here you go, this is the journey that you're on. Here's something that's going to work. Take it, try it out, and come back to me. And it's for free. There's no obligation. There's no necessary, there's no point at which they have to then come back and say, okay, how much do you want for it? It's like, take it. And then you develop that little bit of trust. I'm like, wow, it worked. Here's something else you can have. Wow, that also worked. Here's something else. This is great. Well, if you want some more, then obviously get cost now, because obviously there's an inherent sunk cost for what we're doing. But you're more likely to trust them. So that's one of the things that I really like about this example, and it's something you should definitely have a look at. Be thinking about, how do I look like a trusted person that I've just met online? Okay, so when you think about LinkedIn, you think about, well, 500 people trust this guy at least. Okay, on Twitter, 13,000 people are following him, so they must trust him for something. Okay, how do you create trust in a world where no one trusts anything? Okay. One of the things as well, which I always personally recommend, is never try to sell, close, or get a meeting on the first interaction. Something I see which always comes across as really desperate is when I get an email out of the blue, or I get a LinkedIn request out of the blue, and someone says, oh, hey, Ross, yeah, really great, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Can we grab a coffee? Can we do this? Can we do that? And I'm like, I have absolutely no idea who you are. I don't want to buy anything. I remember I had one guy even come up to me and said, oh, I'm writing a book. I want you to co-write it with me. I'm like, I'd just come off the stage. I'm sorry, who are you? Do we know each other? No, I have no idea who this person was. And it's more of a turn-off, okay? So if you want to try and build my trust and my reason to invest any time or interest in what you're doing, then there needs to be some kind of dialogue first, okay? And particularly in business. So then lastly, start a conversation with them and let it develop from there. Because not all customers are going to be the right ones for you, okay? Not everyone is going to be a good fit. You may have some customers who love everything you're doing, okay? And you'll also have customers who hate everything about it, and they will complain to you constantly, okay? We all know those customers, okay? So when I'm saying start the conversation, you're also going to be feeling them out. Is this someone I want to be working with, or is this somebody, oh, it's just going to drain all my time and energy and money and resources and thought and thinking and processing, okay? We've all got very limited time of how much time we can spend on anything. So pick the ones who you want to work with and who you appreciate and who you like, and it massively transforms what you have to do. So when I'm thinking about what we're doing, I like to think about who influences the influencers. Okay, so I mentioned earlier Tim Ferriss, really, really good example of someone who has the respect of Silicon Valley, for example, on his opinion. So I'm always thinking, okay, well, how do you develop that? And one way that you can do it as well is with PR. is with PR. So when we think about journalists, generally, we tend to think about this is the journalist, right? Generally speaking. However, the reality is usually this little grunt down here, okay, who's just on the thing, trying to find something interesting that might go viral, okay, bored out their mind, okay? Those are the real journalists. And journalists as a profession is actually becoming very, very, very difficult to get paid for, okay? Because there's people like me who are just writing free stuff and putting it on the web and not asking for any money because I know it helps for my brand, okay? But for paid journalism is actually very, very, very difficult. So when we're thinking about who we're pitching to for like PR, we sometimes think of this person, but it's actually this person down here. And so this is an actual real headline. Seagull snatches Chihuahua, how the story has spread to America and Australia. Now, I've no idea. I really don't care. But what I'm trying to say is that no one studied journalism for 3 years at university to write about seagulls kidnapping dogs. Okay? So they're waiting there for anything that you put out. Okay? They're waiting to basically you to go to them and say, hey, we're doing something that's really interesting. We're doing something that's really cool. We're doing something that's unique or innovative. Or we're doing something from Latvia that's coming to like the UK, you know, or whatever it is, you know. But if you undersell what you're doing or who your company is, think of that they're having to write about this, okay? And all they want is to be respected as a journalist, okay? So if they could break a story about how a really interesting, innovative Latvian startup or company or is coming out of this accelerator program, okay, is taking on the world with what their new moonshot is, okay? That's exciting to write about. That's, oh, wow, you know, could be writing about the next Elon Musk here or something, except no one's going to be throwing rocks at my car, okay? But think about kind of how you can pitch it to PR and journalists, because they're all looking for something interesting. So I think the last thing I'm going to say is control perception and you control reality. And that's how what we're trying to do with all of the marketing is how do you control everyone's perception of your company, okay? And once you start to control that, you can actually then start to control the marketing and how the sales actually start to really accelerate towards what we're doing. Okay? So I've got some time now for any questions. Please feel free to ask. Yep. If you want. Or not. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think the biggest confusion is the people's conception of the organizations
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they feel it's just a pure advertising, but in reality it should be connected to the product and the market research, to things like that.
Okay, so I didn't quite catch the question in that.
Yeah, I mean, how you clear the confusion on the market, the definition. What the
Oh, okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, I think you're saying what's the actual definition of the marketing rather than just advertising. So marketing, so advertising is one aspect of marketing. So advertising is just billboards and paid advertising and social media and magazines or whatever. And it's just generally advertising is just a broadcast. Okay, so message is just broadcast once, maybe a number of times. Okay, but marketing is the thing that it sits under. So if you don't have a coherent marketing strategy, and a lot of people fall into this, they just put loads of money into advertising thinking that is marketing, and they lose a lot of money. Okay, because there's nothing to back it up. Okay, there's no brand understanding behind it. There's no communications. There's no PR, for example. There's no thinking. So if it's not all joined up, you might, the advertising means nothing. Okay, and I can guarantee it won't work because there's nothing there to follow it up with. So for example, when we come on to later, where we talk about balancing the marketing campaigns and the sales, if you're just doing advertising on its own, that's not going to drive any sales, and the sales force will hate you for it. Okay, so saying, well, why are you wasting all that money when you could be spending it on more salespeople, and we'll go and do it. And they'll be probably right if you're adopting that strategy. So if you're looking at marketing, you want to be thinking about, oh, how does this all join up? How does it become coherent? Because if you think to yourself, you're not just influenced by one advert you might see in a magazine or one advert you might see on Facebook. Okay, it'll be a series and series of things that have happened. You've had what's called touch points. Okay, where it'll be from PR, it'll be from the brand, it'll be from people talking about your brand that you have no idea about. Okay, but it's never just going to be from one advert that someone's going to read an advert and go, that's exactly what I need. Okay, we're bombarded by way too many adverts as it is at the moment. So actually breaking through that noise is incredibly difficult. I can't remember the exact number that you receive on average a day. I can't remember now, but it's a phenomenal amount. So as a result of that, what our brain now does is that it just filters out. And so it just becomes white noise. It's a bit like being in a football stadium, shouting to the person on the other side of the stadium and hoping they're going to buy your whatever it is you're selling. Okay, that's where we are now with advertising and the power of social. So the reason we do that is that I personally would much rather be sat next to somebody and have a conversation with them and sell them that way. But if you want to try and sell by just shouting to one specific person on the other side of the football field during the middle of a World Cup match or something, try. I wish you the best and let me know if it works. But that's just my experience. But you can develop it into a beautiful joined up thing where it's like, yeah, of course, why wouldn't I want to buy this? That's where you want to be getting to. Cool. Yes.
Maybe from your experience, what is easier or maybe more trendy nowadays, to sell a brand or a person, to promote a person as his own company?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. There's a lot of debate actually around, should you basically sell the brand as, or the company or the product as a brand, or the CEO or the CMO as the brand, right? And there's no right or wrong answer. It depends a lot on the individual as well. So I remember there was somebody who came up and spoke to me afterwards at one of the conferences, and they were like, I'm CEO of this company, but I don't really want to be going out there and doing all this. And I was like, you don't have to. I said, I'm not saying you have to. Some people are really comfortable going out there. Some people are really comfortable standing up on stage and gesticulating and being the center of attention. Some people just prefer to get on with the work. Like, think of Mark Zuckerberg, for example. Okay, very, very introverted, very shy and retiring, and he lets his brand speak for itself, unless he gets pulled before Congress and has to testify. But you can do it either way. But the one thing I would caution is you never let the brand of the CEO or whoever that figurehead is eclipse the brand of the company. because then you start to, then you're, as we've seen with, for example, like the Me Too movement, that can very, very quickly go downhill, and your whole company can be impacted by it. One of the challenges with Uber, of course, was that Travis Kalanick, who was the CEO, had a lot of allegations made, and it dragged, it brought into question a lot of the ethics and culture of Uber itself, whether it was realistically or unfounded, with like the wider culture, I don't know. But it then all hinged on what he had done, rather than the thousands and tens of thousands of people throughout the whole company. So I think there's always a balance to be struck between the two. And I think if someone is very good and is very, engaging and charismatic and something like that, then leverage that, but also be very aware that there is it is a double-edged sword, or it can be. Yeah, good question though. Yeah.
I think there's a very big difference if you talk to you as a founder of the company, talk to the hired gun from Aston Martin.
I wasn't I didn't have any company at the time.
If you talk to some executive of IBM, it's just a hired gun. It's not the face of the company. You are probably. Yes, I'm not. Yeah, so I think that's a bit building on a little bit from what we said. I think so. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
Can you suggest some podcasts to listen to be further in his field, to go further? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. One of the things I was going to do actually was give like a list of some resources. So there's a lot of good books. There's a lot of podcasts. There's some really good podcasts. I think probably one of the best books I would actually recommend. I love books because I can then make marks and write and come back to it. So which ones? So one of my favorites, a bit of an all-time classic in marketing world. It's not quite Harry Potter. Is a book called Influence: The Power of Persuasion by Dr. Robert Cialdini, Caildini, I think it is. I don't know. But Dr. Cialdini actually he writes out 6 key factors of influence that basically affect all of us. And it's built on psychological principles that he's studied. He's a doctor of psychology at the University of Arizona. So he goes through basically these 6 things, one of which is social proof, which I obviously mentioned earlier, one of which is authority, which I briefly mentioned and we come on to this afternoon. I talk as well, one of the points he talks about is consistency, which is basically how consistent are you as a brand or as an individual, which is also something I kind of believe in, and you can see through like all of my social media, there's usually a consistency of like images or the points that I'm making, so there's no surprises. Again, builds that trust. And I actually had the privilege of meeting Dr. Cialdini, and we were talking about even writing a book together based on, because all of his stuff basically focused on, the book was not dated, but it was just a bit, had older examples, and I was explaining to him about, well, where we're applying this now is in like the tech world, and you can already see the impacts of that. And so we're actually talking about like a collaboration on it. So that's definitely one I would recommend, and it works with every bit of marketing you ever do, or sales. I think that's a really good one. I think attraction, obviously, traction, not attraction. That's really good if you just want like a list of like a load of marketing activities that you can do. That's very useful. But I would also be thinking to kind of like expand your horizon about things that you read as well. One of my favorite books actually is a book called Trust Me, I'm Lying: Confessions of a Media Manipulator by a gentleman called Ryan Holiday. So Ryan is like one of these like really young, super smart, really good looking, sickening kind of people. And he actually looked at how do you manipulate the media in our digital world. And unfortunately, what he didn't foresee or didn't really appreciate was by putting this book out there, it basically gave the blueprint to every Russian hacker who wants to manipulate an election. The book's divided into two parts. The first part is basically how do you do it, and the second part is like kind of examples of how it's been done in the past. And so one of the things that he does specifically is look at how do you create kind of like content and media stories that are like what's a nice way of putting it, divisive, that will enrage people. So his whole thesis was that you target the people who you want to get angry because you know they're going to make a lot of noise. And then the negative is that they promote, by just creating that noise, you promote the other person. I'm not sure I've explained that very well. So there was, okay, so it was interesting. So I'd kind of been doing this already, and then Ryan's book came out, and I was like, oh hey, that's kind of what I've been doing. I didn't know, and he was like, yeah, I've just codified it, and we met up and had chats, and he's done some really, really cool stuff since. But like he looks at a lot at you know, how easy it is to manipulate the media, which is incredible, really. I mean, it's unbelievably easy. So, for example, there was a client, and we were again looking at social experiments, and we kind of, I don't know, not hacked the BBC website. That sounds a bit dramatic, but we just manipulated it because we knew what their algorithm was. And basically, every single media algorithm is like the more traffic it gets, the more likes it gets, the more comments it gets, the longer it stays up because it's, you know, most read, most whatever. But they don't care where the traffic comes from because it's just getting clicks, 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 clicks. So then if you funnel a load of fake traffic to whatever media piece that you're promoting or that you somehow manage to get into, like the BBC website, and you keep pushing enough fake traffic at it, or real traffic, just from bots or whatever, then it keeps it up the most read story list. And we actually had a story trending for like 4 days at like #2 across the whole of the BBC media most read. And so by definition of like the more people who see that, oh, why is that #2 then? And people then click on it. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm not recommending anyone does that by any chance. I can't be sued for it. But I'm saying it's for me, it's kind of like an opportunity to then actually look behind the curtain and actually understand, well, you know, once you understand how everything fits together, you can also understand how to game the system. So that's interesting. Sorry? Ryan Holiday. Yeah. As in, we all need a holiday.
So I believe we have one more question.
Hi, my name is Laura. I'm from Baltic Jewelry. My question is about social media. What is your prognosis if, for example, Facebook or Instagram will take out this like possibility to see how many likes? What is your what will be with the influencers and marketing and so on?
Yeah, so that's a lovely brooch, by the way. Obviously, I'm guessing one of you homemade ones, is it? Yeah. Okay, so so the question is around Instagram. I think are taking away likes. Facebook are talking about it. Obviously they're owned by the same thing. And it's interesting to then start to think about, well, what's the ripple effect? So LinkedIn, obviously they changed it from just likes or comments to likes, there's claps, there's a light bulb, and there's something else as well. But what they also try and do is like they've stepped away from completely is like having downvotes as well. So you can't do unlikes, which obviously is quite, as an effect on like a psychology, is quite big if you're getting overwhelmed by people who don't like you. Regardless of how much people like to think, oh, it doesn't mean anything to me. So the interesting thing is like, yeah, what impact will that have on like the Instagram followers? Well, I think then what will happen is that because then it will very much go to, again, it's just one more metric, is how many likes you get. So the main metric that most influencers are being judged on now is not the number of likes or followers, because as you see, it's too easy to fake. But they actually focus more and more on engagement. So how much if they post something, how much do people actually engage with them and, you know, have the conversation backwards and forwards, which is then also, I think, really interesting because you have the rise of chatbots. I don't know how familiar people are with that, but by definition, if you have an Instagram account and you have, like, say, 2 million followers, which isn't a great deal, you want to up your number of engagements, because the more engagements you have, the more likely you are to get more sponsored content and be, you know, asked to be an influencer and things like this. So then because of that, by definition, an influencer can't engage with that many people constantly just on their own. So that's where we'll see the rise of chatbots, which become much more across the entire social media spectrum, because that will actually be able to do the engagement for them. And because the further that chatbots go towards AI and actually being, you know, passing the Turing test of, you know, oh, is that a real person or is it a chatbot? You don't know. And you can program all these chatbots now to have, like, personalities like you as the influencer. Not that I'm an influencer. Then you can, you know, start to manipulate things again. So I think where there'll be, and it's just what happens, where one thing is taken away, it will lead to the rise of a different technology or a different way that they'll change the system. But I don't see, but it just depends on where and how forward-thinking a lot of these influencers are. But yeah, so really interesting. It's really interesting to see what actually happens. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Ross.
Thank you.